Now, Mark Warden is the Porcupine Realtor, and we have, you've been on the show before, Mark. You're also a state rep here in New Hampshire. That's not a secret, is it?
No.
Okay, because I know
in fact, let's tell all the constituents in my district that I'm
tell them all.
pro-liberty reps. They can vote me back into office.
Was it a secret that you were a free stater, so-called, as you were running for office? Because it seems like some of the people that got elected as liberty activists wanted to kind of keep that on the quiet side.
Right, and that's understandable because we've seen this past year in particular that the Democrats have really come out using the term free stater as an epithet and putting people down because of it. But what's funny is they lump in all sorts of folks who are just pro-liberty and they call them free staters. So now it's sort of a badge of honor.
Or even if they're not pro-liberty, even if they're only pro-liberty on one issue, they're a free stater.
Absolutely.
In that instance.
They usually say Tea Party, free stater, extremist, radical, right-wing, conservative, all together.
Well, and by the way, it's worth pointing out that the first free stater, so-called, to be elected was a Democrat here in New Hampshire. Joel was his name, and I don't think he got reelected, but I'm not sure what happened with his case. So-called free staters are, officially the definition of a free stater is somebody like the three of us. We signed up for the Free State Project at freestateproject.org. We moved our lives from where we were, and we moved here to New Hampshire to get active for liberty. So that's all a free stater really is somebody who's moved to New Hampshire as part of the Free State Project for Liberty.
And it goes beyond that. I can tell you a story. Today we had a tour for Liberty Forum to take a tour of the State House in Concord, New Hampshire. And we had a big group there, and we bumped into one of the senators, one of the state senators. We had a chat with him and introduced the group visiting for Liberty Forum. He said, you guys, I'm the original free stater. Said I moved here 4 generations ago, and we're the reason that you guys chose New Hampshire as a free state because of our commitment to less government, individual freedom.
And that's really the truth. Frankly, I know a lot of people are frustrated by the advances that the Free State Project has had, if it's contrary to whatever it is that they want, and I can understand that frustration. But the one thing that they really don't want to talk about is New Hampshire is already the freest, as rated by the Mercatus Center 2 times now, the freest state in the Union. And that makes it, frankly, probably one of the freest places in the world. When you consider that the United States ranks the 13th, and that's just kind of an average of the states, and you consider that New Hampshire is one of the freest of the states, I don't know where that puts New Hampshire at as far as jurisdictions, but I'll bet it puts in the top 10. It may be the top 5.
By the way, our toll-free number here, 855-450-FREE. We're going to actually take some calls here, and we'll talk maybe more about what's going on in the legislature or what you think is interesting up there.
Well, he's the Liberty Rep of the Year from the New Hampshire Liberty Alliance.
Is this a new announcement?
It's relatively new.
That's great to know. Good to know. Mark Warden.
Yeah.
I would consider Mark Warden the Liberty Rep of the Year. He's the one guy that came out to support the 420 celebrations.
And while you're taking those calls, if people, I'm a Republican, you can't say that on the air. So while people want to know what the Liberty rating is, go visit www.nhliberty.org for more information.
That's right, nhliberty.org. I am a member of the New Hampshire Liberty Alliance.
Let's go to Tom, listening in Hibbing, Minnesota, to WNMT. Tom, you're on Free Talk Live. Hello there.
Hi, guys. Thanks for taking my call.
Tom. Oh, thanks for being here. Go ahead with your thoughts.
I want to get your take on, kind of shifting the power of the education from the teachers' unions to parents. I would love to see the idea of shifting where parents would have control of the funds and they could, basically portable. They could take them to the school of their choosing. And I hear the argument, well, then the government would impose their views on religious schools or whatever, and it just seems to be that's a false argument.
I don't think so.
In such a way that they wouldn't have control over what the school teaches.
Well, unfortunately, that tends to be how it works, though. I mean, when these vouchers come up, it essentially gives the government money to, dangle in front of these private schools and say, well, we'll let you take a voucher so long as you do X, Y, and Z, and then A, B, and C, and then 50 more things that they have to do on top of that. It's just the way governments do things. And it seems like vouchers are kind of an end run around what really should be talked about, which is true freedom from taxation. Why shouldn't families and folks be able to just keep their money in the first place rather than having to send it out to the state government and then have a bunch of state government bureaucrats take a chunk off the top for administrative fees while they cut you a check to be able to take to some school that will have to jump through some government hoops in order to get their hands on the check? Why not just let people keep their money in the first place and decide what to do with it? Tom?
Well, I don't. I favor decentralizing that control to the degree possible. But I just like to see some way to get that power of educating children back to the parents.
Absolutely. I think that's what the most important thing is. Obviously, you still, as a parent, you still have the ability to pull your kids out of the government school, but that doesn't solve the monetary issue.
Certainly.
But clearly, getting your kids out of government school, as we talked about last night, is an important goal that I think most parents should strive for, even if they can't get their money back. But think about it. If people just had the political gumption or the courage to, say, gather together, because I know you're not the only parent, Tom, that has this concern. A lot of parents are pretty concerned about the government school system. Imagine if, 15 to 100 sets of parents in your given area just decided to gather together and say, we're just going to go ahead and keep our money, and we'll spend it how we want. We're taking our kids out of the government school because it wouldn't be right to not give money into the system and still send your kids to the schools. So take your kids out of the school and then have a bunch of parents gather together and say, yeah, we'll just go ahead and keep our $3,000 a year or whatever the amount is that the government schools are taking from you, and see what they do. What do you think they would do? You think they'd steal all your homes? Tom?
I don't know.
You there, Tom?
It's a big step.
It is a big step, and it does involve risk. And, the problem is, for all the people that have all the complaints about government schools, they're not willing to take any risks.
I'm not really willing to take that risk.
If you had 100 people willing to stop paid property taxes?
I don't.
If you had 100 people, would that change how you felt about it?
I want to hear what Mark Warden has to say about what we're doing here in New Hampshire to solve these kind of problems.
Tom, thanks for the call tonight. Appreciate hearing from you. Well, not everybody is moving to New Hampshire, and they need solutions too. So, find some courage and find some other people with some courage who are willing to stand up and refuse to obey, and then see what happens. We're coming up here, 855-450-FREE. That's 1-855-450-3733. Free Talk Live.
Hi, I'm Mark Craighead, founder of Crossbreed Holsters. Are you looking for a concealed carry holster? Crossbreed Holsters is the home of the world-famous Super Tuck, the most comfortable concealed carry holster on the market today. Try one out and see how truly discreet and comfortable carrying concealed can be, and find out why we call it the ugliest holster you'll ever love. We are the standard others try to imitate.
Get the original. Get your Super Tuck at crossbreedholsters.com. Again, that's crossbreedholsters.com.
This is Free Talk Live, and you can take control of the airwaves, even though we are live here at the Liberty Forum. The number for you is 855-450-FREE. That's 1-855-450-3733. You can join us on our website at freetalklive.com, and there goes the music very unceremoniously. Anyway, 855-450-FREE is the number here. And by the way, Free Talk Live is brought to you by SACL CAI. Jason Osborne is in the house tonight, not in the room at the moment. We do have our live studio audience back there. And Osborne, I'm sure, will be joining us at some point throughout the weekend. He's the guy behind SACL CAI and a major supporter of this program, longtime supporter of this show, and other great liberty-oriented programs out there like Liberty Conspiracy, which also appears on LRN.FM. And if you want to know more about SACL CAI, you can find their banner right at the top of our banner column over at freetalklive.com. Once again, that is SACL CAI. They have a full-orbed approach to account recovery, and they get it done while still respecting your customers so you can keep your customers down the line. Again, 855-450-FREE is the toll-free number here. We have special guests that we're going to have in and out of the studio throughout the weekend as we broadcast live from the 2012 Liberty Forum, which is basically just now getting kicked off. Earlier today, there was a State House tour. Were you along for that, Mark Warden?
Yeah, I visited with the group.
So, I mean, you've spent a lot of time in the State House. You are an elected state representative here and a Free State Project participant. How many years have you lived in New Hampshire now?
I'm going on 5 now. I moved from Las Vegas, Nevada, out to New Hampshire in
Big
2007.
Change, huh?
Yeah.
And how's it been for you now?
It's been great.
Yeah, you haven't gone away yet, so it must be working, right?
The cold winters and all, but some of your listeners may know that the state motto here in New Hampshire is live free or die. So it's kind of a natural for people who believe in liberty and limited government and lower taxes and more individual freedom.
Unfortunately, it's just a motto, and it really doesn't apply, does it?
No, I've been thinking about changing the name on the license plate to, I don't know, be taxed or die or something like that.
It's, New Hampshire is ranked as the most free state, but that's like saying we have the best form of cancer, because there's still a lot of problems here in New Hampshire, and you're one of the guys that's able to work on it from a political side of things because you've been elected. And what are some of the exciting things that are coming from kind of the political perspective? I mean, what's in the works right now?
Well, I appreciate the question, Ian, and let's talk about legalization of, let's say, marijuana.
Oh, I like that one.
I'm a Republican, and Republicans in New Hampshire are fairly conservative, yet most Republicans here understand that when there's no victim, there should be no crime, and simple recreational use of a plant like cannabis should not lead to jail time, which just loads the prisons and the court system.
Sure does.
Just this week in my committee, as a matter of fact.
Which is what, criminal justice? Criminal
Justice, which is a House committee. We had, I believe, a landmark decision in which the Criminal Justice Committee passed in approval a bill that would decriminalize up to 1/2 ounce of marijuana and make it what's called a violation as opposed to a misdemeanor or felony offense.
Now, this has never happened before, right?
Right. And so
there have been like medical pot things that have come up before, and they've made it through. I think one medical pot thing made it through the State House, but then got beaten back by the governor. But nothing like true decriminalization has ever come that far.
Yeah, this is a bit of a milestone. Now, it hasn't passed into law yet, but it passed a committee with a good recommendation. I expect it will pass out of the House with the same.
What was the vote on the committee?
It was 13-2.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, it's great.
Wow. All
so
right.
Next up to the Senate, and we'll go from there, and then the governor.
So let me see if I've got this straight. So it's 1/2 ounce or less would be a violation instead of a misdemeanor, basically, is what you're saying.
So you would have a fine, but you wouldn't be facing jail time.
Well, if you don't pay the fine. If you don't pay the fine in New Hampshire, you get to go to jail for $50 a day. But that's certainly a step in the right direction, and I'm really glad to hear about that. Mark just walking in on this conversation. Mark Warden just told me that apparently the Criminal Justice Committee has passed 13-2 a Decrim bill for less than 1/2 ounce of pot.
Oh, and pot. I thought we were talking about gold and silver. Sorry.
No, but is there any news about gold and silver that you know of?
No, we tried to make gold an official currency within the state of New Hampshire, but that didn't go very far.
Oh, man.
So maybe next year.
They did that in Utah. How about homeschooling? I'm always interested in how the legislators are handling folks that are wishing to, pretend like they actually have the freedom to educate their kids.
Yeah, your last caller had a good point about different ways to approach the payment of education, and homeschoolers kind of get gypped because they have to pay property taxes, which in New Hampshire account for about 2/3 of the expenses for schools, yet they don't take advantage of those. Same with childless couples and individuals that don't have children.
Sure.
They pay high taxes, pay for the expensive schools, yet they don't get the benefit of that. So
but I kind of feel like private schools and homeschoolers really get the double stab. They've got to pay for schooling and pay for somebody else's
schooling. They should definitely get some sort of tax credit for that. But homeschooling is going strong here. We have a lot of people, a lot of different communities. Some are more religious oriented, others are not so much.
Yep.
And they have all sorts of activities and outlets for the kids to socialize, for sports, for outdoor activities. And almost to a person, every homeschooled child I've ever met been very mature and gets along great with adults as well as children of other ages.
And they seem to have a higher level of education generally than, when you see the spelling bee winners, it's always the homeschool kids. They practically have to shove them off into their own spelling bee to give the regular kids a chance.
So tell me more, Mark. What else is coming up that you think is interesting that our listeners out there would think, wow, that New Hampshire, something different going on there?
Well, what reminds me of listeners that, first of all, the reason we're thought of as a free state on the roads is because if you're a motorcycle rider, you're not required to wear a helmet.
Yep.
And in the cars, adults are not required to have a seatbelt. So the cops can't pull you over just because you don't wear a seatbelt. So that's better than most states, right?
Right, and that's how it was when we got here. That's not new.
Right. But it's the first time these people have heard about it. So we're trying to push the envelope and get a little bit freer all the time.
Sure. And that income tax, too. I mean,
no sales tax, no income tax.
So many people are just stunned when they get here. Certainly the property taxes they're nothing to sneeze at.
Mm-hmm.
But when you look at that, many people coming from the big places, New York, California, Illinois, they're going to have an immediate upgrade in their income.
Well, let's talk about the budget a little bit. And as a fiscal conservative and Republican, I want to point out that New Hampshire last year cut the budget by 11%.
Right. How much does your state cut it by, right?
Right. Are there any other states that the budget's being cut?
I don't think so. I mean, we'll invite your callers to call in if their state did it, but I think we're the only one out of 50 that actually did that. And it wasn't just 1% or a break-even or a level-funded budget. It was an 11% cut. It's historic.
But wait a minute. All right. So I've heard politicians say, we cut the budget, but have taxes been cut? Will cutting the budget actually end up reducing taxes?
That's a great question. At this point, no. In this case, we just stopped the bleeding.
Where's the money go? Were the cuts basically, going? They were spending more money than they had, so therefore
they were based on revenues this time. Every time in the past, they would base the budget on what they wanted to spend.
Okay.
And then they would raise taxes to get revenues up to that level of expenditure.
Yeah, they were.
This is a bit of a maverick house this year. Mm-hmm. And last year, and they said, okay, let's see realistic numbers on how much revenues are coming in, and that's how much we're going to spend, and no more. And when they saw the revenues were down from previous biennia, previous years, they said that's all we're going to spend and no more.
Right. Can you imagine a municipality or state actually sticking within its budget? I mean, it's ludicrous. In this country, it just doesn't happen.
It sounds crazy, but it's true here.
Right. I mean, it's crazy that they don't, and that it's crazy that New Hampshire does. It's amazing.
So what are you looking forward to here at the Liberty Forum? Are you going to be here throughout the weekend?
I'll be here all weekend. Looking forward to meeting some people that are considering moving here. I'm in the real estate business. And
Perfect.
I'd like to help facilitate that move for anybody that wants to invest in New Hampshire property.
PorcupineRealtor.com.
Yeah, that's right.
You've got a catchy jingle, by the way.
You do have a really awesome jingle. For those who
Thank you, Hanarchist. Shout out to Hannah for that.
Hanarchist, yes. Now, real quick, you basically put a bill in for me. Can you go over that bill briefly, tell folks about it a little bit?
In a lot of states, and also I think under federal law, if you're a convicted felon, you're not allowed to possess a firearm. But the definition of firearms varies by state. So here in New Hampshire, it happens to include what's called a black powder weapon.
Yep. Anything that propels a projectile with gunpowder.
Right. And it could be a musket, right? Something you see at one of these Civil War enactment.
It could
wars.
be something from the 12th century. I mean, one of these old-time things.
And that's just ridiculous. So we put in a simple bill this year that would repeal that part of the definition to say, okay, if somebody's convicted of a felon, by the way, that includes all felons. It could be a white-collar crime, fraud, so they're totally nonviolent, maybe possession or selling of drugs. So it's kind of it's overreaching as it is. We said, here's a small change. Let's allow black powder weapons. That's still working its way through the House. I don't have a lot of hope for it, but we keep trying.
It did make it what was the ought to pass in the committee. That doesn't mean that it's necessarily going to pass the House, and if it gets past the House, that doesn't mean it's going to necessarily pass the Senate, and it doesn't mean that the governor is going to necessarily sign it.
Here's another fun thing. In that same bill, we also said, okay, felons should also be able to possess brass knuckles and knives. So I brought in the brass knuckles to the committee, and a chainsaw, and a butcher knife. I said, these two are legal. Why are brass knuckles illegal?
Great point. Mark Warden, thanks for sitting in with us here tonight. PorcupineRealtor.com for anybody considering coming up here to get the house. Thanks for sitting in. Appreciate it.
You're free, gentlemen.
Yeah, we're working on it. All right, so 855-450-FREE. That's the Seiko CAI toll-free line. More coming up here live from the 2012 Liberty Forum.